The November 12th meeting of the East Penn School District Board of School Directors is hereby called to order. Please rise and join me in saying this flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The first item on the agenda is request to address the board. I have one request this evening from Ms. Pat Huffman.
Good evening. I'd like to thank the board for keeping we parents so well informed during Hurricane Sandy. I appreciated the phone calls so that I knew what was going on with my children's schedules. 3 weeks ago, I addressed the board regarding the profound misbehavior on bus 37 going to and from Lower Macungie Middle School. The behavior over the last 5 to 8 years has included racial slurs, ethnic slurs, and sexually provocative conversation. The morning after my address to the board 3 weeks ago, the morning call said, and I quote Dr. Seidenberger, "With all due respect, there are two sides to every story. He will talk with the principal at Lower Macungie Middle School, as well as the driver and a representative from First Student, and decide if any further action would be appropriate for the situation," unquote. Also, Dr. Seidenberger, if the words are, quote, "if the words are being said with harmful intent, the school district will deal with those students." I would ask Dr. Seidenberger if this remark is considered with harmful intent. "Hey, are there any Jews on this bus? Because if there are, I'm Hitler, and I have an idea," unquote. The East Penn Press reported, quote, "The school board will also address a parent's concern about the misbehavior of students on bus 37. The morning after I addressed the board 3 weeks ago, my daughter was detained on the bus by the bus driver when she got to school in the morning. One of the students that had been formally accused of this behavior was also detained on the bus, seated right behind the bus driver. The bus driver said to my daughter, 'Is this the student that made some of those remarks?' My trembling daughter whispered yes to the bus driver. My daughter was then asked, 'Are there any other students who were misbehaving? Please give me their names.' And my daughter did. I do not ever want my daughter put in this position again. I've made that clear to the principal at Lower Macungie Middle School. When I spoke with her about this incident, she did say that this behavior by the bus driver was not done with the direction of Lower Macungie Middle School administration, and that they would talk to First Student about it. We are now 3 weeks beyond my address to the board. I have not heard back from anyone in the last 3 weeks in response to what solutions, if any, might be found to this situation. I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Huffman. We'll now move on to minutes. Oh, excuse me, bond refunding, sorry. We have Mr. Scott Schurer, Managing Director of Public Financial Management, and his team here to discuss this issue.
Good evening. I have a brief handout here to pass around. Well, good evening. Probably by now most of you have read or seen how low interest rates are and what kind of shape the financial markets are in. Depends on what view you're looking at. Some say the financial markets are great, some say not so great. Depends if you're looking at your 401k or if you're looking at borrowing rates. It's a little bit subjective. But the reason for my visit this evening is to talk about the next possible refunding opportunity that's available to the district Remember, we had pretty good success with 2 other prior transactions this year, this calendar year, that we'll go through briefly. What we're looking to do right now is to just kind of brief you on a pretty short refunding transaction. We're looking at doing 2 different series, combining 2 series into one, and achieving some economic savings without changing the structure of the debt. So with that, why don't we just jump into the handout and kind of go over a few of the highlights. Starting on page 1, the 2 bond issues that we're targeting are the series of 2007 and the series of 2008. About $2.5 million outstanding on the 07 bonds. The call date, we're basically coming up to it here, and the final maturity, as I said, is pretty short, only about 6 years remaining on that particular series of bonds. Your series of 2008, a little over $5.3 million outstanding. The call date is coming up here shortly in the spring of next year, which again legally puts us right in the time frame to be considering this. And again, a pretty short transaction, only about 5 years remaining on that one, with the final maturity in October of 2017. So right now, if you go down to the bottom of page 1, by combining these 2 transactions into one, and based on current interest rates, we're looking at about $250,000 or so of net savings. And that's net of issuance costs, net of the state share of the reimbursement, which on a percentage basis, I know we talk about this a lot, from an efficiency standpoint, that's about a little over 3% or 3.2% of what's being refunded. A lot of times the benchmark, every entity is a little bit different. I know East Penn typically likes to set about a $250,000 threshold to move forward on any refunding. Some entities look at a 2% savings number, some look at higher. This kind of falls sort of right in line with both East Penn normal standards as well as industry standards as well. So why don't we just go through a little bit more of the detail of this. Page 2 gives you an idea of where interest rates are. There's lots of different interest rate charts we can show you. I kind of like the one in the middle. It's an interesting chart. This is, if you look at the title, Historical MMD Curve Illustration since January of 2007. The MMD curve stands for Municipal Market Data. And so this is the tax-exempt index that the industry uses very much. It's probably the most widely used index. And it illustrates every year in the shape of the yield curve. Look at basically a 1-year rate, 2-year rate, 5-year rate, so on and so forth, out to a 30-year rate. The line, it's a little bit trickier to see just in black and white, but the line in the middle of those bars that goes across year 1 all the way up through year 30, that's where the average yield curve has been during that 5-year period. The bars for each particular year is the range that has actually ranged since 2007, and actually the bottom line, which again is a little tricky to see, that's where we are today. So I know there's kind of lots of things on that, but basically you want to entertain the conversation of a refunding when that line is down at the bottom of each one of those bars, which is basically exactly where we are. So that's a good thing. And then on the bottom is a slightly different graph looking at the 10-year municipal index going back again 5 years. And you can see that we are pretty close to all-time lows. If you look at kind of the little box down on the bottom chart, this one right here, the current rate for that particular index, which is what your transaction would pretty closely correlate to, that current rate is a 1.63. The minimum or the low point of that has been a 1.6, and that was over the summertime, pretty much near when we did your last transaction. And the max during this time period has been a 4.86. So again, we're only a few basis points off, or a few clicks off the all-time low for this particular index. Page 3, just a quick illustration of how the district has fared over the past about 10 years or so of refunding transactions. To date, since 1998, since I personally have been doing the transactions for the school district, if you look at the far right-hand column, down at the bottom right-hand corner, including the estimated savings for this transaction, is a little over $11.2 million of interest rate or net savings that the district has realized, and that's net of all issuance costs and net of the state share of the savings over time since 1998. Page 4, you see this chart many times. This is an illustration of all the outstanding indebtedness of the school district The top half is what I call the gross debt service. That's the principal and interest that's due on each particular bond issue. And then the bottom half, where it says local effort requirements, that is the debt service payments after the state's share of each one of the respective bond issues. If you remember, the state does, for most of your transactions, the state does share a few cents per dollar on the payment of your debt service. The two columns that are highlighted, columns 8 and 9, those were the two that we're targeting right now, the series of 2007 and 2008. Again, you can kind of see in relation to a lot of your other debt, these are pretty short transactions. And then just to quickly go through the numbers, the 2007 bonds, as they're currently scheduled on page 5, so if you did nothing, you would continue to pay column 2, which is the principal. You would pay the principal one time a year, and again, that's showing just a little under 2.5 million. The average rate ranging from a 3.5 out to 4%. And then on page 6 is the existing structure of the 2008 bonds. Again, in column 2, total principal just a little under 5.4 million. And again, you see the interest rates ranging from a 3 to 3.5 in column 3. And then if we jump to page 8, this would be what the new bond issue could look like if we'd done the transaction about the time when we put this handout together. So the new interest rates you see in column 3 ranging from 0.85 out to 1.52, which averages out to about a 1.25. So again, you're taking a higher rate, just moving it down to a lower rate, somewhere in the low 1 handles, and that's what's generating the net savings over in column 10 of about $250,000 based on these interest rates. So about a little under $100,000 net savings will be realized in the current fiscal year, in the 12-13 year, and then the balance would be realized in the 13-14 year. And then on the last page is just the estimated source and usage, which if you did want us to proceed to come back at a later date, we would then break that out like we normally do with all the detailed costs. And there on page 9, kind of the bottom number there in the middle where it says yield of the issue, that's based on these assumptions, that would be the yield that we would report to the IRS that you locked in this money at, again, just a little under 1.25%. So again, we're not proposing to change the structure of your existing debt, just consolidating 2 bond issues down into 1 bond issue, and net savings after issuance costs and state reimbursement, about $250,000. That's also not reflecting, by combining 2 deals into 1 deal, you're saving, maybe about $750 a year on paying agent fees by going from 2 bond issues to 1 bond issue. We're not factoring that in, so that might add a couple $1,000s more to savings. But again, we're not actually illustrating that in this analysis for you. So I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have or add any more clarity.
Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Scherer? Mr. Earnshaw?
Yeah, why would we put a 5-year call in there? It would seem that in 5 years we'll have paid off all but the last $440,000, which represents about $6,700 worth of interest. Or is that just standard? I mean, I'm wondering if we don't put the call in, does that maybe help us market the bonds a little better, or does it really matter?
It'll be more of a game time decision. I think we'll start with a 5-year call. We always like to leave as much flexibility for our clients as possible, even though you don't have much callable debt for this particular deal. As you mentioned, it would just be basically 1 maturity. You just never know. I mean, we've run into these instances. We've been doing this for many, many years, and we've come across different instances where we were very grateful that we did end up putting a 5-year call on a real short deal just to be able to refund one of the maturity later in the future. So I think we'll start out with making it 5 years. The Pennsylvania market does view a 5-year call as the standard. So I highly doubt, but again, it's more of a game time decision, that if we made the transaction non-callable, I don't think we would pick up any additional benefit. But again, it's something, the market changes day by day. So if we get to that point in time, we have various models that are called option adjusted or call adjusted models that they'll actually kind of run that through to see if we do make it non-callable based on current indications we're getting, how much additional benefit that may or may not bring to the table. So at the moment, I think we'll put in the various offering documents, the 5-year call, but we always have the ability to amend that closer to time to make it non-callable if need be. We always like to leave as much flexibility for our clients as possible. You just never know. Thanks.
Anyone else? Mr. Bopper?
The yield of the issue, is that basically all the expenses included?
That's the arbitrage yield. So the arbitrage yield by definition only includes the bond insurance, if there would be any, and for your transaction, it does not include insurance, and it includes the underwriter's discount.
Okay. So it doesn't include the cost of issuance?
No, the true interest cost would be, that's another, I mean, there's the net interest cost, the true interest cost, the arbitrage yield. The true interest cost, we can run that for you. That would probably take it up to maybe 1.5%, but we can easily show that to you on the next handout if you'd like. But this is the sort of industry standard to report what's called the arbitrage yield, and that's what needs to be reported on all the tax certificates that your bond counsel would fill out.
Okay. And you mentioned the $10 million limit. That's for favorable interest rates?
Correct. That's to achieve the bank qualified interest.
And that's per issuance. There's no limit on how many?
It's per issuance per calendar year.
Okay.
So that's why we would propose to close this transaction. If we can price it in December, we'll do that if everything's ready. One of the holdouts may be the rating agency. They're just pretty booked up at the moment, so they may not be ready in time for your December meeting. If not, then we would target your January meeting. But regardless, just to say we did price in December, we would still want to close in the new calendar year. You already used your bank qualified limitation for calendar year 2012, so now we
would not be able to refinance the rest of next year with bank qualified rates?
Yeah, there's always caveats to every rule, and this one's a current period refunding. So whenever you do a current period refunding, which is 90 days or sooner to the call date, assuming you meet other IRS tests, the whole amount would actually not count towards the calendar year, just a couple $100,000 would. So that's a test that we have to do, and then we have to prove to your bond counsel that you meet that test, which could leave additional room for you to do another bank qualifying transaction next calendar year. And to that point, why don't we just while we're talking about it, we go back to page 4, which is all the outstanding debt of the district, and you go down to the very bottom, basically the more or less the second row up where it says call date. I know it's starting to get a little small. Your first couple of columns, they're your variable rate transactions. They're callable basically any time. Those average rates right now are pretty low. The next column over is your 2005 A bonds. They're callable December of 2014. So legally, we cannot refund those until we get within 90 days of that call date. Again, there's different legal criteria that we have to follow both at the federal level and state level whenever we do one of these refundings. So that's one where we actually legally have, under the federal guidelines, we have to wait until basically 90 days prior to December of 2014.
The only thing other than the variable rates, which I understand are low, would be the 2008 A, which are callable
next year, that's right. Now the other thing that we could potentially do next year, if you go over, so then we do your, the two columns that are shaded, November of 2012 and April of 2013. Then as you mentioned, we have your 08A bonds that are callable September of 2013, so they're on our radar screen for next year. And also the one right beside it, the 2009 bonds. Although they're callable November 2014, because of the purpose, they were new money purpose, I forget offhand exactly which capital project that funded, but legally, they are able to be refinanced prior to the call date. But what's happening right now, when you try to do refunding transactions basically longer than 90 days prior to the call date, there's a lot of inefficiency in the transaction. It's called negative arb. You basically borrow money today at real low rates, which is great, but you have to put that money in the escrow until the call date, and unfortunately, I think we all know that the short-term reinvestment rates are horrible. You're lucky if you can get a 0.25% or so in those escrows. So it actually creates a lot of inefficiency in that transaction. So that's something that, as you get closer to the call date, that inefficiency gets better, depending on other factors going on. So that may be something we may want to entertain maybe a year from now. If not, we may want to wait till closer to the call date on that one. And then your other ones are callable in 2015 and later. So we will leave the flexibility to do another bank qualified transaction next calendar year, but just kind of market pending.
Any other questions? Ms. Sanchez?
Yes, I know that the bond rating is very important, and we talked about that last
I mean, you're absolutely right. In today's day and age, well, ever since the market meltdown in 2008, 2009, what I call the standalone credit rating has become more and more important for issuers across the state and across the country. East Penn is in a pretty good situation. You have a very good credit rating from Moody's. You have an AA2 credit rating, which is definitely in the top tier. That's one of the main steps that we're going to need to go through if you do authorize us to proceed before we come back either in December or January with the bid. We'll need to get your credit rating analyzed again by Moody's. I do happen to have your credit rating from the last transaction, and Moody's, they do now actually put in their report just that, what could make your rating go up or what could make your rating go down. And two of the factors that they mentioned, two factors for each. So what they cite for East Penn, as far as what could make the rating go up, substantial improvement in the district's financial reserves. So that's one thing they always look very closely at. They understand that there's state requirements on how much reserves you can have, but they always want more. So substantial improvement in the district's financial reserves, that could make the credit rating go up. And the other thing they cite is significant growth in the district's underlying tax base. So one of those you kind of have some control over as far as the reserves that you're able to establish up to certain guidelines that the state oversees. The other one, significant growth in the district's underlying tax base, you don't really have a whole lot of control over that. I mean, you're kind of at the mercy of the region at that point. But they do cite the good tax base here within the district, so that is a positive. So those are the two things they cite that can make it go up. As far as what could make it go down, one of the items is inability to maintain satisfactory financial flexibility. And the other one is deterioration in the district's underlying economy and tax base. So basically, Moody's, well, both of them, there's three main rating agencies. Two are the most dominant, and that's Standard & Poor's and Moody's. And we typically go to Moody's for your district. They basically look at four main criteria when they rate school district or county or city, whatever the case may be. One of them is your economic strength, which they cite in here, and that's of the type of economy around here, the workforce profile. So they kind of look at the region as a whole. Then they look at the financial strength, just kind of the balance sheet of the school district, and that's where they like to see the operating flexibility and strong budgetary performance and various liquidity in your balance sheet. So that's first they look at the economy overall, then they drill down into your actual financials. They also like to see strong management and policies put in place, so they look at the management style of the administration and of the board. And then the last main item that they focus on is the debt profile. So there's kind of many subcategories in each one of those four main categories, but those are sort of the top four that they like to address in their reviews. Obviously with a AA2 credit rating, you rank pretty high in all those, but hopefully there's a couple items I did mention about going up or going down answered your question.
It was very informative. Thank you.
Good.
Any other questions? All right. We'll need a motion to authorize AFM and our bond counsel go ahead and Road and Simon to start this process. Remember, we will have another motion on the final sales when that occurs.
So moved. Second.
All right. Any discussion on the motion? Not appearing. Ms. Birdsall, will you call the roll, please?
Mr. Earnshaw.
Aye.
Ms. Hyde.
Aye.
Mr. Rhodes.
Aye.
Mr. Stoltz.
Aye.
Mr. Bacher.
Aye.
Ms. Donchev.
Aye.
Ms. Fuller.
Aye.
Mr. Policano.
Aye.
Mr. Ballard.
Aye.
9 ayes.
You're authorized.
Thank you. I will either see you in December or January, and as far as the final timing, I will let your administration know. Again, probably the biggest caveat will be where we stand in the rating process. And again, at that point, then we come back with your live bid like we typically do in the auction format. My hunch is we're probably going to steer towards January, but I'll just keep you posted.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Next item on our agenda is a presentation by our Information Technology Director, Mr. Michael Moen, on iTunes U.
And of course, earlier, no? Okay, there we go. Thank you, Dr. Steinberg. In my August 13th technology update, I talked about several items, including iTunes and some static information we had posted out there. Now we're ready to launch our first subscribable segment. And there we go. Okay, so as a quick review, under iTunes, just about any computer that there is, whether it's Windows or Mac, has iTunes loaded on it. So you launch iTunes and you go to iTunes U, iTunes University, and select K-12. Now it has a list of all the school districts in the world that have an iTunes account. You scroll down to the East Penn School District, select it, and you'll get our statically assigned information or uploaded information from August. And now you'll see we have our first Mayes High School Stinger newspaper online. You click the subscribe button, and you are subscribed to our high school newspaper. So how's this going to work? Well, I've got an iPad and all devices are different. As you can see here. There we go. All right. Now I have an iPad and all devices are different, so you will read a PDF or a book separately depending on the device you have. For an iPad, I'll be using iBooks, because that's how my books come down. So see my PDF, my digital books that I have, in the lower right-hand corner, I have my sticker. So I hit subscribe in iTunes. I now have our first issue out there, volume 38, issue 4. Our very first stinger issue loaded. Now the editors of the newspaper, they send me each individual page because small groups work on the pages. I put them together into one full document, upload it to iTunes, and when you set to subscribe, you get it pushed down automatically. Now this is volume 38, issue 4. Issue 5 will be due in the next week or two, so as soon as that comes out, the editors will send me the documents, I'll package it together, drop it into iTunes, and anybody that has previously subscribed to the stinger will just get the next issue pushed down to your device. Now of course iTunes being global, you can imagine that grandparents, friends, anybody overseas in Afghanistan can download the stinger whenever it comes out, so we're pretty excited. The kids, when I showed them, I've been working with the kids for the past couple weeks, very, very excited. One of the students told me, they say, one of the students told me today, I feel so important. I feel so important now. Another comment was, I have to start thinking past the walls of the high school for my writing, which I thought was awesome. But the best comment I got today was really hitting was, this is going to make me a better writer. Because I'm realizing now that someone in Egypt, someone in the United Kingdom will be reading my work, or could be reading my work. So it's going to make me better, and I just thought that was fantastic. So it's our first document that's out there subscribable. We have some more ideas, and they'll come a little bit later. So do all the homework. Next time you're online, go on iTunes, the East Penn account, subscribe to the stinger, download it to your device, and let me know how they work on your Androids, the iPhones, the apps, and thank you very much. It's been a great part.
Good. What are the other documents you have up there? Our Internet Safety Program, right?
Well, we have the documents we have loaded right now. We have the Internet Safety course that we had in Moodle for parents to download and get to. We have some EduLink instructions for our new emergency contact system. We have now the Stinger newspaper out there, and also we're working on with some of the colleagues here on some ideas about getting some products and student work out there. Once that's ready to go, we'll be able to launch that. Very excited. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moen. Are there any questions for Mr. Moen on the iTunes U? None appearing. Well, thank you very much. We look forward to much more content in the future. Well, finally, we can get on to approval of minutes. Can I have a motion, please? Are there any additions or corrections or notes from Mrs. Sanchez?
Yes, You might remember the conversation we had about paragraph 4, when the word with should have been replaced with without. Since that changes the essence of the paragraph, I thought it would be important to change that word from with to without, so that it says without the express written permission.
Okay. Any other corrections? All those in favor of approving the minutes as corrected, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Minutes stand corrected. We'll now have the report of the superintendent of the schools, Dr. Thomas Seitenberg.
Thank you, Mr. Ballard. I want to start off tonight with congratulating 2 of our staff members and some of our students. First of all, I'd like to bring to the board's attention that Michelle Comp, an art teacher in our district, and she works at Willow Lane among other places, she was just announced that she received the 2012 Outstanding Innovative Classroom Practice Art Education Award from Kutztown State University. And what we're happy about is her project that she submitted had to deal with integrating art into the sciences. In other words, she was one of our original group of teachers who were trained in STEM. So we're very happy to have that connection between arts and the sciences. So congratulations, Ms. Comp. Also from Kelly Weaver, a teacher at Lower McConjee Middle School, came to our attention that Lower McConjee Middle School was given a national award for the best video in the 4th annual competition for the Association for Middle Level Education, a video competition. And I want to congratulate the following students: Jacob Licker, Jason Bowen, and Ian Bowler. I watched their video, did a nice job on breast cancer awareness, fundraising and activities at Lower McConjee Middle School. So it's great not only to see our students win national award, but the topic is one of interest. And congratulations to Mrs. Weaver and the students at Lower McConjee Middle School. Also, this past weekend we had 2 teachers from the high school, Claudia Reese and Lori Babbitt, who took 43 students to Staten Island, where our students and our staff members helped in a distribution center, helping folks with dealing with the aftermath of Hurricane Sandy. So again, at least in 2 cases here, we have our students are ingrained in doing good neighborly works, and we're glad to see that. Next question we're dealing with, and wanted to discuss it with the board first, are makeup days. Last week we had an opportunity to talk to some of my colleagues in the area, and with us being out of school 4 days for Hurricane Sandy, the obvious question is, when are we going to make up the days? Well, we do have our school calendar that we submitted and the board approved. I didn't make copies of everyone, but you have access on our website. Basically, our calendar states that we have 2 days are built into our schedule, so we're okay with 2 days. But right now, we would have to make up 2 days. And so what I'm going to recommend to the board, and I'll probably put into formal action next board meeting, but I want to have the opportunity to review this with some parent groups that I'm meeting with, and also our administrators and our Teachers Association to get their feedback as well. But I can tell you that the prevailing choice among superintendents locally is going to be using the February 15th day. That's the Friday of President's holiday. We do have off that Monday, and then also looking at March 28th, which is the Thursday before the spring break. So those are the 2 days we're looking at. That would still give us 3 stated days, June 11th, 12th, and 13th, to make up days should we have further inclement weather as we move through the winter. Now, people are asking, what's going on with the state? And I can tell you, quite frankly, we had a meeting as part of our superintendent's meeting with some folks from the department last week. In fact, the number 2 and number 3 ranked people in the department. And we also got a little memo sent out from our superintendent's group, PASA, indicating that although the state is in the process of gathering information, it's highly unlikely that they're going to give us any relief at this point, unless we would have such a severe winter. So for those people that have hopes of the state forgiving us those days, I think that's not going to happen. So we're going to be making it those days unless we have a terrible winter. And right, in fact, in the school code, it doesn't say that the state can forgive us for inclement weather. Something I think we all found out last year. Remember I sent that letter last year. So I'm going to put this in a formal motion next board meeting, and then we can at least allow our staff members and our parents to change their plans if they have plans for those 2 days. Okay, one of the things that we're going to do, and I think you saw Mr. Moan with some of the techniques that we're using. As you know, Ms. Boyes, we started a Twittering this year, and one of the things that we've talked about internally, there's a lot of good things going on in the district, and yet some of our parents and board members and even parents, and some of our staff members don't know exactly what things are important to us. So we're going to start taping little informational vignettes, and we've locked into 5 that we're going to be doing in the next week or so. Yes, that's right, Mrs. Campbell, you're one of them. And what we're going to start with are major initiatives that are going on in the district. What are you laughing about, Dr. Picard? You're on the list too. All right. And so what we're going to be using high school students to interview key members of our staff, so we can do in 5 minutes, so people can click on a button and learn a lot about rounds. People talk about instructional rounds. So what's it mean? So Dr. Torma and I are going to be doing the show on, I'll listen to you talk about rounds. And then one of the things we're really happy about this year, the Daily 5, which is little strategies our teachers are doing. We're going to have a teacher, Jackie Vogel, and Mrs. Campbell are going to talk about the Daily 5. And we think parents ought to know about that. And then, of course, Mrs. Campbell's back for return engagement, doing RTII with Tricia Gutman. And then, oh, Mrs. Campbell, you're starting again. We're going to have you do a little segment with Susan Nowak on what exactly does STEM mean. And then we're going to come back and talk about some other curriculum initiatives, Keystone exams, and the Common Core, what's going on in the district with those. And then we're going to ask Mrs. Picard to talk about what are we doing with our autism program. So I think we'll start with those 6 programs, and we'll see how they look, and then we'll add things so that parents can click on and find a little bit more about when we talk about instructional rounds, what does that mean? We talk about STEM, what does that mean? So forth and so on. So we're looking forward to doing that. In your packets, I gave you the latest PASBO and PASA report on what's going on statewide. I'm certainly not going to read the report here. For those who are interested, I hope anybody, member of the public, the press, they can download that report by going to the PASA website. I think PASBO has it as well, right, Mrs. Sirwell? PASBO, they have it on their website. One of the things I certainly draw your attention to, page 6 of the report, is that there were 14% of districts surveyed last year did have a budget that had increased below Act 1 limits, and that's where we fit in. So I think when compared to people around the state, we did a pretty good job. Middle states. Remember last year we talked about having a middle states visit, and it was postponed. Well, the visit is going to take place, and for my notes here, the team will be coming to East Penn for 3 days in December, and they have scheduled, and please don't shoot the messenger. It's not my time. This was the time selected by the high school and the visiting team. And again, perhaps we can work with Mr. Ballard. If you are interested in meeting with the team of evaluators from the Middle States Association, you can come and talk to them December 5th at 7 o'clock in the morning. So, I know. Mr. Ballard. Mr. Ballard.
The bell's on.
We'll be there. We can do it by Skype. So if you're interested in talking to the high school team, we are looking for at least one volunteer. So if you're interested, will you let Mr. Ballard or Ms. Birdsall know, and we'll schedule you with the high school team. We'll give you the information of where you're going to meet, but it will be held at the high school. So. This Thursday, it's our annual Thanksgiving community dinner. We're booked up, we're booked solid, so we're excited about that. That will be a nice annual affair. Also, I want to let the board know and the public know that we really have started our budget process. And last year I gave you some information regarding some pre-budget information. I want to give you a little bit of information tonight, just what's going on in the neighborhood, just on 2 bits of information. What the aid ratios were for the school districts in our IU last year, and what all the districts are lining up for in terms of the 13-14 adjusted index that, at least that, this is the information we have from the State Department. So for those in the public, the average index is 2.1 for all the districts in our IU. Our index is 1.7. And I'm surprised when you look at the aid ratio, Southern Lehigh's really dropping. It's considerably less than ours. So that's what other school districts are dealing. I thought you might have that. Next board meeting, Mrs. Sturlaw will be here to present her 5-year forecast. And I want to let the board know that we've already started our internal meetings. We had our first meeting today. All the budgets are in. We're compiling them. We've made our first official cut this morning, correct? Correct. Are you happy about that? I am. Mr. Clancy. So we won't reveal the name of the person we met with today, but that person will be adjusting. Let's see. Oh, the last thing I want to talk about was our enrollment again. And again, this is sort of pre-budget information. I just want to draw your attention to a couple items. And again, the current enrollment as of last week, as of November 8th, was 8,075, which is an increase of 53 students from this time last year. But behind the numbers, I think you really need to look at what's going on. The elementary level is basically showing the greatest increase. Middle school somewhat, and high school still perplexing. It's dropping about 20-some students from last year at this time. Elementary classrooms, I want you to know that last year at this time we had 143, we now have 145. Please recall, remember we added a teacher for Little Wayne, and then we also, with increased federal funds, we added an all-day kindergarten to Alberta. So, but that all-day K we were able to conduct this year because we got an increase in Title I funds. We'll just have to wait and see if we're able to use, if we're able to have similar funds next year to conduct that all-day K class again. And again, drawing your attention to numbers behind the numbers. Gifted education. There's a strong possibility we're going to have a gifted teacher next year's budget. I'm talking to Dr. Picard rather, and going through the special ed audit this year, we're precariously close. And so I would suspect with the increase in numbers and taking a look at what's going on, we may very well come back to the board and say we're going to need an additional gifted teacher next year. Speech, again, is up slightly, but still it's an increase. And again, we showed you for the last 4 or 5 years, we have increasing numbers in special ed. Last year at this time, 731. This year, 772. And remarkably, last year at this time, our autistic population we were serving was 46. Now we're up to 60. And I can even tell you, since I wrote this report to you last week, we picked up 2 more autistic students. So we're really up 16 autistic students. And again, there are numbers, there are limits on the number of kids we can have in classes. So Dr. McCarrick's doing a remarkable job of managing that. But sometimes the numbers are just going to dictate that we need more classes. And so we'll be in special ed classes, we'll be taking a long, hard look at that in our budget development. Thank you, Mr. Bell. That's all I have.
Thank you, Dr. Seidenberger. Are there any questions for Dr. Seidenberger on his report? Mr. Bacher?
maybe this will come out later in the legislative, but there was some talk about the 1.7 index not being in keeping with the law, how the index is supposed to be calculated. Is there any clarification on that?
Not at this point. I know there's some consternation. Dr. Morning Call asked me for some comments, that I gave some general comments. I know I'm not going to identify my colleagues, but I think there's some consternation with some things that are happening statewide, how they calculated the index this year is one of those. But we have not heard anything official from PD. But that certainly is well known by, I think, the Secretary of Education. And how that works itself through the grapevine will be interesting. I don't expect anything to be changed. But
Not by
there's certainly-
state action.
Not by state action, but there's certainly aware of it.
Or is there any legal action?
I'm not quite sure of that, but I'll certainly, in my communications with the legislature, going to ask them to take a look at that. I mean, they're the ones that can command that.
No one's filed suit yet.
On a happier topic, the vignettes that you mentioned, Dr. Steinberger, will they be on the
Yes,
district's website?
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
That's why we're going to do it, just to improve communications, rather than send out you can go first, Dr. McCarry. We just want to communicate better with the public so that people hear about these programs. They can connect who's leading the programs and get some more information about it.
Any other questions? All right, thank you, Dr. Seidenberger. We'll move on. Personnel. Can I have a motion, please?
Second.
Is there discussion on the personnel items? None appearing. Ms. Birchall, will you call the roll, please?
Ms. Fuller.
Aye.
Mr. Polacano.
Aye.
Mr. Blocker.
Aye.
Mr. Stoltz.
Aye.
Ms. Hyde. Aye. Mr. Earnshaw.
Aye.
Mr. Rhodes.
Aye.
Ms. Townshend.
Aye.
Mr. Bauer.
Aye.
9 ayes.
Under business operations,
Mr. Ballard, can I say one thing? I just want to let the board know, with the retirement of Susan Case, we are not going to replace her for the rest of this year. And I think going forward, what we might do is look at managing some support staff hours a little differently and going with one librarian at the high school. So I'd like you to know that. Okay.
it's a budget consideration. Thank you, Dr. Seidenberger. Under business operations, is there any objection to combining numbers 1, 2, 3 together? Ms. Sanchez?
Can we please separate out number 2?
Number 2. All right, 1 and 3 together. Motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion on 1 and 2? None appearing. Ms. Birchall, will you call the roll, please?
Mr. Blocker.
Aye.
Mr. Polacano.
Aye.
Ms. Fuller.
Aye.
Mr. Earnshaw.
Aye.
Mr. Rhodes.
Aye.
Ms. Townshend.
Aye.
Mr. Stoltz.
Aye.
Ms. Hyde. Aye. Mr. Bauer.
Aye.
9 ayes.
Number 2, can I have a motion, please? So moved.
Second.
All right. Ms. Sanchez?
This is a follow-up to some questions I had at the last meeting pertaining to the investment and the fact that it is voted on after the investment is made. And I was wondering, is there a particular line or lines that the funds are taken from? Or is it just overall?
Where are the funds, where are they coming from that we invested?
The funds are coming from our cash account in the general fund, which is the 100101 account,
Okay.
which is the overall main cash account in the district.
Okay, is any other coming from the fund balance at all?
The fund balance is just part of our cash and investment.
So that's under the 0101 as well?
And fund balance is just a type of account, just like an expenditure account, and the money is kept in a cash account, and it's a separate type of, not a bank account is a cash account, whereas a fund balance and an expenditure accounts are like detailed line item type account numbers, but they're not separate accounts.
Okay. And what interest do we get on those accounts?
on the regular, well, the fund balance is, like I've said, it's just an expenditure account number. It's not a separate account. Those funds are all together in the general fund cash account.
Okay, so how much do we get on the cash account?
Right now, it's, I believe it's about 0.25%. But that varies. It might be a little bit higher, but it's not quite the 0.33.
So between the last investment and this investment, it's a little shy of $1.5 million, which is really about how much we raised the tax. Right?
I'm sorry, I don't understand your question.
So it's just clarifying that it's just shy of, it's like $1,448,000 for the two investments combined.
Yes, but we put in a place CD program, which is a fixed investment rate as opposed to variable rates, which we have in bank money market accounts.
Okay. And then how often do you check to see how much, like where there's monies accumulated that can be moved out into a money market?
Things like this, sometimes we get calls from entities like Pliget will call us and say they have a special going on and this is the rate if you could invest this much money at this time. And then you have to lock it in right away.
Okay.
So we never know when a special is going to come out that looks good to us.
I thought it was interesting that this investment was made 4 days after our last board meeting. And it makes me wonder if there isn't a way to offer the board the opportunity to provisionally approve some amount of money that's maybe expected to be invested within an amount of time, instead of just voting after the investment is done. So for instance, say tonight you knew that within the next 30 days there's the opportunity to invest $300,000. Could there be a provisional approval made to, like just to change the process?
We have Mr. Bonker first and then Mr. Earnshaw.
Well, is this, I guess two questions I have. My understanding was, I mean, we get taxes generally front-loaded.
Correct.
And we pay our expenses as they're due. So technically anything, even money that we're planning to spend, we could invest it for a period of time, even
Yes.
though it's planned in the budget to be spent. So
Correct.
there's not really a linkage between particular fund balance and particular money going out, in my mind. Is that correct?
That's correct.
I understand that.
And then also with any program like this, if we decided we didn't want to make this investment, we could take the money back out and we'd have an interest penalty or whatnot, but we wouldn't lose the money,
Right.
right? So
Right.
there's not really any, if the board says we don't want to do it, we can say, don't approve it, and she can take the money out.
Right, and we never know ahead of time what rates and deals are going to come up, and we don't know, if rates jump up all of a sudden for fixed rate terms, that we would invest many millions at once, and it's not something you plan ahead of time. You don't find out until that actually happens.
So once you get the call, how much time do you have to commit to making a decision?
Like within the hour, you have to do it before noon of that day.
No, okay.
Are you done, Mr. Bonker?
Yes.
Mr. Earnshaw?
Well, we approve the depository institutions once a year. So we approved Pliget as one of the places where the district is allowed to invest funds. But as has been stated, interest rates are fluctuating on a constant basis. So I would invite Ms. Donches, if she thinks that she knows what interest rates are going to be over the next 30 days, so that the district would have the opportunity to do some kind of investment. I want to know about it because I'm going to get involved in the arbitrage trade and we're going to make millions of dollars off of this. The reality is nobody knows where interest rates are going tomorrow, the next day, 7 days, 14 days, or any point in the future. They could go up, down, or stay flat. They'll probably do all three over the course of a 30-day period. So I love the ability of our district to manage its treasury account on a basis where they can make those judgment calls when those opportunities arise. If somebody here, it doesn't have to be Ms. Donches, if anybody knows what interest rates are going to be at some point in the future, I want that crystal ball. The reality is nobody knows, and so if we try to handcuff the district's personnel from doing their jobs, which we employ them to do, and micromanage them in this regard, not only are we going to do our employees a disservice by disempowering them, we're also going to do the taxpayers a disservice by missing many opportunities for the district to maximize its interest income and thereby give us additional funds to invest in the mission of the school district without any kind of tax impact. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Earnshaw. I would like to comment that this is an example of having our employees proactively manage the money for the district. And they report these investments back to us, and if there was any significant problem, we could question it or do anything as we could right now at the time. But in no way would I want to get the board involved in trying to decide what day-to-day investments we will make of our cash, trying to second-guess our employees who are full-time employed and experts in the fields that they're employed in to do the jobs of the district. We have a business office for the purpose of maximizing our return on our investments and our cash expenditures. They monitor the expenditures, they monitor the markets, they're in constant contact with our financial advisors. They're doing a full-time job managing our money, and the board, quite frankly, cannot do better than that, has never done better than that, and won't do better than that. I'm sorry, but having the idea that the board should be out there doing day-to-day investment decisions is, quite frankly, silly. It is ridiculous, and it is stupid. And so if somebody thinks that they can have a better system, I'm willing to hear what their presentation is on the subject, but I also want to see their track record in actually investing this kind of money is. Because I don't want to hear from somebody who's never invested other people's money and had to respond to them about what's going on. So it's not something like that that we should be getting involved with. And that's my opinion. Next, Mr. Stoltz.
I'm sure that this investment is perfectly safe and sound, and I don't have any particular problem with that. I kind of like the idea of a provisional approval when it's something like this that occurs 4 days after the prior meeting. We had to know that this was in the pipeline.
We definitely did not know that this was in the pipeline. I got a call that morning that they had a special on that amount of money that was invested at that time.
All right. Well, and I disagree with the classification of nearly $500,000 and having concern over that as micromanaging. We are board directors and we all have fiduciary responsibility in the district. I'm not going to vote against this by any means, but I do have a question for the solicitor. Would a present vote be proper on this if I thought something? Or would a present vote be proper on this if I were self-timed, or would I have to abstain?
I apologize. I don't know what a present vote is. I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh, it's a...
Listing himself as present, not abstaining and not voting. Well, that would be an extension. I think a logical guess.
I'll brush up on Robert's rules on
That's
that
cool.
for the next meeting. Yeah, we both should look into it. Anyway, I'm not going to oppose this. I just probably won't vote since it seems that my approval isn't needed anyway, and I think I can count 5 votes to pass this.
Ms. Tompkins?
I do need to say that I look forward to the day that I can ask a question for information to try to understand my fiduciary responsibility to be informed, to make sure that I have the information that I am doing to do my job, to do my best, and to not have it be looked at as a criticism, or a conspiracy or whatever, it's thought of. I truly do want to understand this. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Sanchez, then I suggest you not make suggestions about what we should do about a vote for as part of the questions of asking the information. Any other comments?
That was ridiculous.
provisional, there are times in other boards where provisional opportunities are granted to the board, and that was out of line. Just improving the
All
process.
comment.
In my opinion, you're just asking for information. You have this all pages, we just doesn't seem in place. Because we already understood what it is. So it's just information.
Mr. Shaw.
Maybe I'm misremembering the discussion, but first she asked questions, and then she said the board should be involved in approving these before the district does it. I could be misremembering it, but that doesn't sound like asking a question for information. If you want to state a policy change, well, we can entertain that. I think it's inappropriate, as I stated in this regard, for us to be involved in that kind of decision-making. We can't be flexible enough to do it. Mr. Ballard, we have, at any given time, if I recall, some number of, tens of millions of dollars at the beginning of the school year as the taxes are collected from July, 30th or so, when the bills start arriving in people's mailboxes until the last installment payment is due at some point in December, I think. That mid-December, whenever it is. So the majority of the district's local revenues are collected during the first third of the year, and almost all of them, as far as the property taxes, except for the delinquent taxes and the, what are they called, the interim real estate taxes, those are collected throughout the year. But by and large, the real estate taxes are here, and giving our personnel the flexibility to invest those, not only the amounts, but also the terms based upon their forecasts of when that cash is going to be needed and when the additional cash flows are expected to come in from earned income taxes, from state subsidies, from federal subsidies. They're in the position to know how much we're going to need over the next month, 3 months, 6 months. And certainly for a board member to insinuate that the board should be involved in making decisions about such things is, frankly, micromanaging to the point of hampering the district's effectiveness. Now, I will say also that with the, as I mentioned before, we approve all the depository institutions beforehand. So if the district came to us and said, oh, we invested a CD in Fly-By-Night Bank Corp. Well, if we had not approved Fly-By-Night Bank Corp, that would be inappropriate for them to do. We have given them provisional approval to invest the district's funds. So I think that this is, there's really no more to be said about it. Thank you, Mr. Ballard.
Anyone else? Mrs. Sanchez.
I do view it as oversight and not as micromanagement. And I think I asked whether it was possible to have a provisional, asking to learn to be informed, not to say that, we should go out and do it. Thank you.
Any other comments? We will now vote on the motion.
Mr. Politano.
Aye.
Mr. Walker.
Aye.
Mr. Earnshaw.
Aye.
Mr. Rhodes.
Aye.
Ms. Sanchez.
Aye.
Ms. Fuller.
Aye.
Mr. Stoltz.
Abstain.
Ms. Hyde. Aye. Mr. Ballard.
Aye.
8 ayes, 1 abstention.
Is there any new business to come before the board? Mrs. Ford?
Not business, I just wanted to compliment Lower McCountry Middle School once again for an excellent Veterans Day program. I wish that my schedule would permit me to attend more programs in the district because I'm sure they're equally wonderful. But I've been to several of the Veterans Day programs at Lower McCountry and they never fail to move on. And it's wonderful to see the public turnout to see what our students have to offer.
Thank you. For those of you who missed a great performance of Hamlet, I would say that our high school did it again. Very nice professional performance of a very difficult play. And you would have all enjoyed it if you didn't manage to make it. Sanchez.
I attended both of those events, and I too would like to say how terrific they were. I do have just a few clarifying and follow-up questions. About the PSBA Value Pass that we subscribe to, I believe we subscribe to it. In the School Leader News, there's an article about it, and of course how cost-effective it is and so forth. But then there was a conference, a web conference advertised, where it says if you don't have the member pass, the value pass, it's $99 per connection. And it says that value pass subscribers receive one free connection.
Certain of their webcasts are done on a very limited connection basis. They're not the general broadcast, and they only have a certain number of limited connections, so they limit the entities. And generally, in those cases, what we do is have Ms. Birdsall arrange for the IT department to arrange a connection here at the school where people can come in and watch it all on one connection.
Okay, thank you, because sometimes I do just go on and sign up.
Now, some of their webcasts are general, and that you don't need a connection limit or have a connection limit. And others, they do have this, and I don't know why.
Okay, that's great to know. I'll take that. And also, when I was filing things away during the hurricane, I noticed that there are 2 checks that were not accounted for in the CF 2010 Series A account. The check numbers 243 and 244. The preceding checks are listed in the August 13th meeting, and the subsequent checks were listed in August 27th. And I didn't see them noted in any listings. I just wondered if that could be checked into.
Those numbers again?
243 and 244. And it looks like they should fall, as I said, the ones before it were August 13th, and the ones after it were August 27th.
It's possible that they were issued but not sent or something like that, so they wouldn't show up yet.
Okay.
Accounts, we'll find out.
And then just following up on the minutes from September 24th, I know that Mr. Clancy was going to get the premium and fee commission information for the insurance. No, that was who was on the advisory council and who was the advisory council and the bids for the companies that we had bid out. But then when I
thought we also gave out the percentage that we charged. 4%.
is that what it is, 4%?
Right, but you didn't get that?
No, it wasn't on the sheets. And then if you'll remember, there was a $77,000 payment made to USI. And at that meeting, I had asked for if there were any fees or any commissions paid in that payment.
Well, you couldn't bring that out, but that was, we had the percentage.
Okay. So that's what it is then. Okay, thank you.
Any other?
And I'm sorry. On the sheds, I noticed that the Indian Creek storage is on the check summary again. Is that because we didn't build the sheds, because we declined the, or is that something totally different?
It's storage for extra furniture that we have for the buildings in case we need to put it back into classrooms. Part of what we have at Indian Creek Storage is going to be sold when we do have our auction. And unfortunately, we've had other things going on and people have not been available to do a complete inventory for that auction.
So as just learning then, when bids are declined, do we rebid them at some point and try to get those sheds built, or is that kind of just put away for now?
We're going to have a discussion on that as part of the facility presentation for the next couple months.
Okay. And then just lastly, excuse me for saying so, but the Act 1 adjusted index that was sent out tonight, this is what I had brought up a few meetings ago, how handy it would be to have the date, at least when it was handed out, and the office that it came from, because there's no notation on the paper, you know, as look at it. I guess anybody could really make it up when you think of it. But anyway, this is an example of what I was talking about at that meeting. Thank you.
We had an executive session prior to this meeting to discuss litigation and negotiations. And we'll remind seniors that the Golden Age Card Thanksgiving lunch is at Eyre and Lower McCounty Middle School and Emmaus High School on Thursday, November 15th. We have fall comedy on LMMS at 7:30 on November 15th, 16th, and 17th. And Monday, December 3rd will be our reorganization meeting. And Monday, December 10th will be our next board meeting. I have a motion to adjourn, please.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Meeting is hereby adjourned.